Brenda, does she have, do you have screen access to share?
No, I don't yet.
I'm like, who needs to do that? Oh, that's me. I'm like,
Technical difficulties, all good.
Oh my goodness.
So I'll just say today, I'm gonna share this. Okay. Can you all see my
Oh, it's so
document?
beautiful.
Okay. So I ran across the book. We've been talking about sexuality, and I ran across the book that Rotwer who put out, who's the founder of human design, if you will. And this is going to be only part one of multiple parts. And the reason I say that is because I got so excited, and it was like, I'm on page 10 of this book, and there's so much more to cover. So I'm going to go through a little bit that I learned, and I'm like super excited because it's different than what I thought it was going to be. That's the whole thing, right?
Fun.
So where are we? Over here, come over here, page down, there we go. So we talked about gate 59 and the channel to gate 6, right? We've talked about that previously, but when you look at it from a sexuality perspective, human design doesn't care whether you have it defined or not. And it's a role gate, which I thought was fascinating, and it's how you're going to appear role-wise for sexuality. And it's the yang gate that always wants to penetrate. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, the imperative to do that is what's driving you. The clock's ticking. So there's a urgency and a need of that in gate 59. Doesn't, like I said, doesn't matter if you have it defined or not. I've included a lovely little picture of the sacral center with where that gate sits, and it connects on the other side to the emotion center. Gate 59 connects to the emotion side on gate 6. So
Brenda, what do you mean when you say roll gate?
it's about how you're going to, what your role is in sexual relationships.
Got it. Okay.
This will be interesting.
Oh,
Trust me, it'll be
just
interesting.
about like, this should be interesting.
I know, right?
Interesting.
Well, when I think sexuality, I also think creativity. So what your role is in creativity.
Yep.
Taking charge.
Yep, this one's just a little bit background for people who might not be familiar with the charts. There are many places to run your own chart for free. You need to know your birthday, birth time, and birth location to get an accurate reading. But what I want to tell you is for your sexuality role line, you're looking at your personality, sun and earth. And for those who don't know, the personality side sits on the right-hand side of the chart. It's the black row of numbers and planet symbols. And then the sun and the earth are the first two in that list. This is just some basic stuff. The values, if you see here with the line that's got the sun symbol that has an 18.6, the value before the dot is the gate number. So in this case, an 18 and a 17 if we're looking at both sun and earth. But you'll notice that the values after the dot are the same for both. And in this case, they're both a line 6. So this person has a sexuality role line 6, and how your numbers play out will be defined on the next screen, because I went ahead and put who has what just to make it fun.
Woo.
Are we good on that so far?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel
So
like I'm
these-
doing like a math equation. I'm like taking notes. I'm very excited about this.
So these are the themes as are applied to gate 59. So if you're a line 1, you have the role of either being the pursuer or the pursued, and I'll go through each one of these a little more in depth. These are binary, meaning it's one or the other. It's not both at the same time, but it's fluid in that depending on the circumstance, you can be one or the other, if that makes sense. There's a line 2, which is role of shyness or boldness. A line 3, the role of bonds made or broken. Line 4, the role of confidant or not. Line 5 is the role of the seducer or the seduced. And then role 6 is the role of soulmate or not. So those are just the words, right? Those are what those things are. Fascinated so far?
All
So when we look at line 1, the role of the pursuer or the pursued, and I tried to make the point, the roles are fluid based on the circumstance that you're in. And the key is to let your authority, your inner authority, decide these things, go into those decisions and circumstances and let that guide you. If you're following your authority to make the decisions and not the mind, the proper role will naturally emerge. Either you're going to be a pursuer in this situation or be pursued. And it's not always just sex. It's just the role of that gate. So role 1 is the foundation line, right? It's the role of the caveman or the cave woman. It's the one that you go out there, smash them on the head, drag them in, and then they're yours, or you're the one standing out there waiting to be smashed and drugged. That's that. I got amused by that, so I wrote it down. And for our reference amongst our group, my husband is a line 1. Yes. Line 2. None of us has a line 2, so there's nobody on the list, but that's the role of shyness or boldness. And line 2s can get stuck in sexuality, where they're always being shy and telling themselves that why they must be that way. It's that repetitive story in the head of what keeps them shy. They don't allow the fluidity to control the circumstances, or they can be always bold rather than following their authority. Line 2 says all the things of the hermit, which says, you can't get in here unless you're absolutely the right person for me. I'm waiting for that person. I'm waiting for that special person. Once that special person comes in, then the shyness can disappear and the boldness can emerge, or the boldness can go away and the shyness can come in. So it's an ebb and flow of the situations. And if you're operating correctly, what works for you in your role is going to be dependent on the situation, not what you think should happen, not what you want to happen, and not necessarily what you expect to happen, because that's all up here. And that's where we need to get away from, right? We need to let things happen as they're supposed to in accordance with our design.
Word.
Line 3, Kristie, this is you and I.
Okay.
Bonds made or broken gets repeated over and over and over again for us as we figure out what doesn't work, right? What does work, what doesn't work. We can get stuck when we hold on to bonds that are horrible for us. We maintain relationships when we really don't like somebody, or even in abusive relationships, the brain talks you into staying because that chatter just never stops. And if that happens, you're not working within your authority, and you need to get out of the head, and for you and I, into our emotions, because that's where we make our decisions. We can have very stable relationships if they're correct for us, but we are always going to need our own space. And specifically, Ra always suggests that you need a separate bedroom for sleeping space. First, I thought it was just me as the projector because I need the downtime from the energy of others. But this one caught me as interesting. Not that I'm going to be pursuing a separate bedroom anytime soon, but that allows the bonds to be made and broken on a daily basis. So you've broken the bond at night. You wake up in the morning, you meet the person again, you're making the bond again, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Manifest a third shifter or what?
I was going to say, which basically you do, right? You
So
break those bonds all the
crazy.
time.
Every day.
When Tom and I first got together, he worked graveyard, midnight to 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Wild.
Yeah.
Will you,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you said because of us, things aren't working because we're in our head and we need to get into our emotion. I'm like, would you also say intuition? Is that interchangeable, that gut feeling, it doesn't feel right, but your brain's like, oh, you should do blah, blah, blah. It's no, we really just listen to that.
So with the gut is your sacral, right? That's your gut, your voice of your gut. When you have both the sacral and the emotion center defined, the solar plexus defined, it's a combination, because your gut will tell you nope or yep. That's all that your gut's going to tell you is the yes or no. And then the emotions is going to tell you, is it a maybe? Is it, where do I feel about this? It's getting into the feeling of it after your sacral says yes or no.
Okay.
Right.
And I do think that I struggle differentiating that. And I think that's just the conditioning that's
Yeah.
happened over time of like,
Well, I explained it to Erin last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. And I said, look, with your sacral, if your sacral says no, there's nothing for the emotions to think about. If your sacral says yes, then you need to go and see where you're on the wave. Are you just really excited, or are you neutral on the outcome? And it's a yes, keep going. Like, do I want Subway for lunch? That's, you shouldn't, if it's a yes, then you should be fine to go. But if you're like, am I being offered a job I'm really excited about? And in this moment, I'm just being excited to be offered anything.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to wait to see if this job is the right job for me. This isn't related to sexuality. I'm just trying to explain how that works, right? And then maybe 2 days later, you come back, or even the next day, or even the next hour, you come back and, yeah, it's a job, but do I want to be flipping burgers?
Yeah.
Or
So-
do I want to be the manager of people? Or do I, whatever that is for you, is to come around on that thing. Are you just excited because it's an opportunity, or is it really something that resonates with you? I don't know if that helped.
It does. And I know the suggestion was given to me, like big decisions really need like a 24-hour.
Yep.
And that would be like my ability to process through that wave.
Yes. And sometimes they're short waves and sometimes they're long waves. You can't predict how long the wave is going to be. You're just supposed to get to a point of that you're neutral on it, meaning you're not invested in the outcome necessarily. And I don't know how to express that in terms of the job thing we talked about, but not just saying yes because it was an offer, as opposed to really thinking about it and going, this just isn't quite it. And then it becomes a no, right? Maybe it's still a no, or an I don't know. And I need to think on it some more. So, feel on it some more. That's how I hope that helps.
Your sacral's like the gatekeeper, right? Like it's like the easy yes or no. And then once you're a yes, then you can like you said, feel it out.
Yep.
It's good. Okay.
So line 4 is the role of confidant or not. And this covers a lot of us. Erica, Erin, Tanya, David, and Craig are all line 4s. Line 4 can be very uncomfortable at the sexual level. If you're the confidant, but you want to be the lover, and they don't treat you as a lover because they think you're the confidant, that's just not going to work out. You can't be both. It can be dangerous when it's played out in friendships, because one moment they're your confidant and you're telling them everything, and the next minute they're not your confidant, and who knows what they're telling everybody else, right? So that's, the book said, sexually, this is the sleeper role. It's where someone slowly gets into your life through friendship, and then eventually there's the chance that something will happen, but you never know. I don't know how this relates to the
relationships or something.
Well,
I love it. Okay.
but you can be the confidant or you can be the lover, but you can't be both at the same time.
That's
interesting, at least.
I'm like, that is so relatable in my experience. Because I feel like I'm always looking for the connection. Like I'm looking for that confidant, right? Like I'm like, let me just connect with you. Let me pour my heart out. And my husband's like, wow, yeah. I'm in lover role.
Yep.
Right? Like,
yep.
It's like, I ain't got time for that shit.
It seems to me like there's also a degree of trust that needs to be there, because if you are doing both roles in a relationship, there needs to be that trust that, oh, I'm like recognizing I'm in the lover role right now, not in the confidant role, but that doesn't mean I'm going to break confidence.
Right, because it can be fluid as well, depending on the circumstance.
Yeah.
But the pillow talk thing probably is not a good idea in this case.
And I would imagine as a 3, I'm like looking for bonds. Like, this is so funny. It's hysterical.
Hey, yeah. I found relevance for myself, so
good.
I'm hoping others find relevance for them too.
So good.
Line 5 is the role of the seducer or the seduced. However, It's not them themselves, it's their projected energy. Okay. So they're seen by others as either the seducer or as the one being seduced. It doesn't mean anything that the person is experiencing for themselves. It's all about how they're perceived. And the example it was given was a line 5 woman could walk into a bar and she immediately attracts attention. It doesn't matter if she's, dressed to kill. It doesn't matter if she's beautiful or not. It doesn't matter if she's even making eye contact with anybody. Someone in there is going to think she's coming on to them because that's what they've projected on, that she's the seducer in that role. And then the other alternative is that some people believe or have the assumption that this person can be seduced, which isn't necessarily true at all. It's just the projection.
That goes back to that line 5 being the mirror. Like when you think about somebody who's a line 5, which Kristie, I know that that's in your on your unconscious side in your overall design, is that like people want to look at themselves in the mirror, and so that attraction of being basically a reflection of what someone else is seeing makes sense that a line 5 would be very attractive or alluring, And
it has nothing to do with the physical beauty. It's just the energy they put off.
Nice.
And the line 6. So this is Jason. The line 6, you're going to crack up at this one, I think, Erin, is the line of the one night stand. They're looking for magic. They're looking for their soulmate. But the line 6 isn't going to be satisfied with just any old sex or any old relationship. The problem becomes, though, if they're not operating within their authority, they can think that it's always the next one and the next one and the next one, and not be satisfied in the one that they have is the right one. Or they can just flat out give up and assume that it's never going to happen.
Has nothing to do with sex, but the other day, a couple of days ago, Grayson had woken up early in the middle of the night at like 2. She never went back to bed. So by 10, she was, crying and all the things. Anyways, I went in there and laid with her and we ended up taking a nap. So finally, and she had scheduled to go eat lunch with my mom and do stuff. And so my mom woke us up when she came in because she thought, 11 o'clock, that's when we were coming. So Jason comes in after my mom. He's like, I'm so glad your mom woke you up. I've just been sitting on the couch waiting for you girls. I'm like, just this, like, I'm like, me, I'm like, woohoo, 2 hours to myself. He's like, I've just been waiting for you. So when you hear like soulmate or like,
it's like a puppy dog. It's like waiting to play.
Yeah. He's like, it's boring without you.
Oh my goodness.
Hysterical.
So funny. Okay.
That's as far as I got. I'm sorry, but I only got through gate 59.
That's good.
There's a whole nother section on gate 6. And then there's all kinds of sexy references to the gates in the solar plexus that we get to go through too.
So fun.
For clarification, Brenda, so if someone pulls their chart, like I'm looking at my chart right now, and I know you put it for us, but we need to look at our actual 50. I know you did the top 2, which isn't anything to do with the 59, right?
No, this is for this one. So if you have it defined, you still have that as what you have.
Okay.
This is generally just about sexuality in human design at all. And it's this theory on it is driven off the lines of your sun and earth, has no matter what that is. Now, what they did say, and I didn't explore it for any of you who have defined, is if that line is different than what's in your 59, if you have it defined, you have different things that may or may not be competing, right? You have the 59-2, for example, or the 59-4, for example, and that's not what we just talked about for you. Then there's a combination of things that happen. And I did not get a chance to look at that for those of you who are defined. This is defined or not, this still governs. And then
So
there's
like
specific
intro to
information.
sexuality, human design, and then we have like next level layers of detail.
Yes.
How fun.
Yeah.
Thank
This
you
is like
for
the
that.
Thank you,
biggest
Brenda.
damn jigsaw puzzle. I'm like, just for anybody who's listening, that this might feel a lot.
I know.
I'm like, and I know, I'm just like, I think this is so cool. And there's just like an abundance. It's like the ocean of information out there, right? Like there are no bite-sized pieces. Like these little bitty chunks that you're helping break this down is really allowing us to digest this like little by little by little.
That actually helped me tremendously too, because I was like, well, wait, my 59, I don't have it, it's undefined. So how did she figure out the line? And so now that makes sense. I was so ahead of myself in the 59 that I didn't realize that you were saying even undefined, like this is the overall flavor.
Mhm.
And me being like in my full design, a 4-6, that 4 is what on the personality side is what
Yes.
leads my.
And the teaser is that when we talk about gate 6,
Yes.
it's the design side. So we'd be looking for this person, we'll be looking at the 2. They have the 6 for the 59 side as far as looking at the roles. And then the 6 side is about resonance waves, but I did not get far enough to be comfortable to present that today. So we'll be looking at that, and it's going to have the same kind of session we just had with this. It's just going to be talking about the resonance waves
Meow.
instead. Mhm. Again, not caring if you have it defined or not at this point.
I love this because like I actually, so I've been playing with gene keys and human design for several years now, or at least a couple of years now, and so I've gotten used to sort of like getting the information in logically, and then noticing how it interprets into my reality or my experience. You just saying about having sort of sexuality wise the flavor of a line 4 brings like the awareness that I've had in that lover confidant role that I've had, and sometimes where I've had an aversion to mixing the two. Like I can see where there have been times where I'm like, no, I'm in a friend mode, I'm in a confidant mode. I like crossing that line into lover. It's like one or the other can be at play, not both at the same time.
It's the
So
duality.
Yeah.
The binary duality. And it's not like you can't have both in, as far as that goes. It's just both at the same time just isn't, I'm not going to say right, wrong, but isn't the way it's designed to be.
It feels a little challenging. Like I think about the heart really is the only space that can manage duality present at the same time, like being happy and sad, or grieving and loving. Any place else, that's a little challenging. So like when we're talking about sexuality and my first or second energy center, my vulva or my womb, it's hard to be like both at the same time. I get it.
So I'm going to ask around the table. I'm going to assume the answer is yes for you, Tanya. Did that resonate with what your and David's relationship is?
Yes, for sure.
Kristie?
I think I'm going to have to start to pay attention. I think that I can definitely identify this. I'm just like, I think it's like information, and I'm going to go and be curious.
But you recognized it at least, yeah?
Definitely. I'm like, I feel like I manifested the idea of needing space.
Not even being conscious of it.
Totally unconscious.
Erin, did it resonate with you?
Yeah. And I'm one of those ones, I'm looking at my chart right now. I'm like, I'm one of those ones that have the 4. And then I also have the 2 and the 6. And so I didn't pay too much attention because I knew, or I don't remember the 6. I don't remember what the 2 was, but I would love to have like, either we do offline or we have another class or whatever about, you know, if you have it and then you also have it defined, what that is. But for sure, yes. Jason has always said, like, I only get to have sex with you. That's what we get to experience together. I'm like,
You're his magic. You're
his magic. Isn't that awesome? I thought it would amuse you when I read it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and
No,
to
that's good.
also adapt to like what Tanya had brought to the table earlier, like it's not always just sexuality too,
Yeah.
right? Like it could be creativity. And I'm thinking, how many people do we know that have been like looking for that, like the best, most perfect job, right? Like it's not always like the partnership. It's like that seeking, oh, sorry, this dog needs to get down. The seeking of like, that's something magical. That's what I was kind of curious if that was relatable to him too, not just in the sexuality space.
Yeah. And just him, when I think about, he and I were talking about the other day of there's this lady that we follow. She's called Anne of All Trades. And she basically was like a 9-to-5er. I think I've sent you girls some of it, but was a 9-to-5er. It's been years and years, right? She built a whole farm in Seattle and then moved to Tennessee, I think. And he follows her, and really interesting lady. And Jason is like, and this is what Anne says too, like I'm an Anne of all trades, right? And then, you know, the saying is like master of none. But Jason said, and I won't be able to quote it correctly, but he's like, but there's more to that sentence, right? Like when you actually do know all of these things, we think, oh, well, you know so much about so many things, but you can't do much. It's like actually the way that his brain works, he just is magic. And he just, you know, like he hasn't said anything, but like I offer him up all the time because I just know he'll be able to figure it out and he'll be able to do it when people are like, I need help, you know, and just, yeah, the magic of, like you say, it's not just about sex. It's all about the like creativity is when I think of him. It's like so creative.
And will you all kind of, I'm just curious because I find myself like connecting. What was that, 5? Was that a 5 for Jason?
6.
Oh, a
I think he was
6.
a 6.
Oh, so that makes a little bit of sense why maybe I would relate to that because I'm a 3. Or no, does it not like work like that?
There's actually, so the line 6 does have the flavor of being a line 3 until about the age 50.
Okay. Just, I wasn't sure. Sometimes I find myself like, oh, that sounds like me too. So, okay.
There can be lots of different influences in that as well.
Of
And
course.
the line 6, like each one of the lines, it's like stacking Russian dolls. So each one of the lines holds within it the other lines as well. It's just sort of like the phase that it, like that's a little bit about how I've learned it and sort of some of what I've intuited as I have done readings either with Gene Keys or Human Design. Brenda, have you heard anything like that? To the nature that each one of the lines holds the lines before it as well?
Haven't heard that as much as I hear that there's resonance with the 1 and the 4, the 2 and the 5, and the 3 and the 6. Not as much. That's not as much as what you're incorporating, but any of this is all experimental and it's all part of your own experience and what resonates for you. So
yeah,
I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad or anything like that. It's just whatever resonates. If you resonate with one of them, maybe that's because that's the base of your design, right? Maybe you have the 59-6. I don't know. I don't have your chart in front of me right now, but
yeah, so cool.
Maybe you resonate with more than one because of what your design is too.
Yeah.
But I
And
think if we're taking that to the creativity side, I see the 3 that we're in is I try a million different things. I'll start something, switch over, and you can equate that to the bonds broken and being made,
That
right?
makes
Start and stop
total
and start
sense.
and stop. So I try many different, like if we're talking craft types things, you know, I know what my passion is, but that doesn't mean I'm trying other things on the side, because shiny penny for me, like I want to try mandala dot painting today because that's the shiny penny today. But I still have my glass relationship, if you want to put it that way. That's my true big passion, but that doesn't mean that other things don't spark me along the way, if that helps on the creativity
It does.
side.
It totally does.
yeah, and I think like when you look at it from the sexuality and creativity, there's also this as an unconscious 6, I relate oftentimes with that 3. The like the breaking of bonds and the creating every day, like I'm choosing my husband every day. I'm choosing to stay in that relationship. And sometimes with creativity, like how do I inject this? With like our sexuality even has been changing. So I'm continuing to create that bond with him every day. But how I'm doing that has been changing. Like in the beginning of our marriage, our sexuality, our sexual interaction, the kind of lover that I am was also very like it was coming from one kind of energy. And so I have recreated that each and every, like this process of evolving and changing how I do that. Did that make sense? Did that come out coherently?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different bond, right? It's a different bond from the beginning,
Yeah.
which I'll put it in my terms. In the beginning, it was very physical and only physical. And it was at a place of wanting to be sure I didn't experience the loss of the relationship. So very more physical than cerebral.
Yeah.
And now over time, that has changed. The bond is still there, but the sexual bond maybe has turned into a more emotional, heartfelt than just, not that it isn't still physical, but a different level of that. And that's a different bond level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Like I said, I got all excited and then it was getting really deep and I was like, I couldn't get through it all. I wanted to get through it, but it's like, this is going to be multi-parted. So I don't know if this becomes a whole separate spin-off because we'll be moving off of sex at some point, but I found it
But we're
fascinating.
never moving off of sex and creativity. I mean, that's at the basis of
everything we are.
everything, right? Energy always precedes manifestation. And so whether we're talking about money, whether we're talking about relationships, whether we're talking about community, like energy always precedes manifestation. And so that means like how the energy, the creation of it, the sexuality of our relationship between the energy around us, within us, and the physical body, it's always going to be the basis of everything.
Plus, I think if we break it up into segments, like we just did this one piece, it won't be overwhelming as well by covering too much at one time.
I agree.
Says pieces, please.
The other
To digest and process.
the other beauty is being able to share, like as we're exploring this, being able to share how we see this coming in, and then subsequently in the future, you know, Kristie, like you saying, I'm just going to be curious about this. Like when I very first looked at my Gene Keys chart, I was like, what is this? And Gene Keys is like only 11, a focus of 11 elements instead of how many is in the human design? 26. So it's a focus of 11 instead of 26. And I remember the first time I was told to just contemplate or think about the shadows that were present in my life's work and my evolution. And I was like, okay, compromise and mediocrity, where does that show up in my life? And it took a while. And then I started going, oh shit, like this is where I see, where have I given up of myself? Where have I, like, that's this theme that always comes up for me. Where do I resist being small? Or where have I given into being small, compromise myself, end up small, breaking that cycle? So it's good to like have all of us sort of in different phases and places of just starting to get this information and play with the energy of it, because then the energy precedes the manifestation, us taking it in, embodying it, understanding, and then we have the whole physicality of it.
Yeah. If it resonates today, great. If it doesn't resonate today, you want to contemplate it, great. If it never resonates with you, that's okay too. It's just information. And that's the big thing we want to say, right? Because we are not end all be all, do it this way, or, you know, feel like we feel or think like we think. That is not what we're here for. We are definitely here to have your own experience. And if you want to share it with others like we do, we're here.
In a safe space, for sure. So good, ladies.
So good.
Yeah.